Welcome back, Jayhawks, and all of our lovely viewers. As you can tell, 2 new anchors. This is Cooper Hannon, and just right to the right of me is the great Grant Shear.
What is up, Coop? It is a pleasure to be here, and I cannot wait for this new semester. You know, we've got some new faces and some new topics. Should be a pretty packed show today.
Yeah, we got a loaded slate for sure. We will be discussing the devastating KU basketball loss, the Chiefs punching their ticket in hopes for a three-peat, and a never-to-be-seen college basketball segment, all in this episode of Run It Back.
You know, Coop, I've never seen a more embarrassing ending to a basketball game than I did Saturday night. I mean, how could we not inbound that ball?
Yeah, Grant, wowza. That was a rough game. At least we got to see Flory break out, Griffin drain a whopping 5 threes, and Shaq Moore's addition to the defense. Just amazing.
You know, you're right. Speaking of a bright side, a new KU volleyball head coach was honored at halftime of that game. For more on KU volleyball, here's Jude Gussie.
Following the retirement of legendary volleyball coach Ray Bouchard, Matt Ulmer has been named the 7th head coach in Kansas Jayhawks volleyball history. Coach Ulmer arrives in Kansas on a 6-year contract after 8 seasons as the head coach of the Oregon Ducks. Under his direction, the Ducks reached the postseason tournament 7 times and posted a record of 166-77. Before Oregon, during his time at Long Beach State, he became the youngest coach in volleyball history to win a national championship. This is how Coach responded after being asked about Kansas's ceiling moving forward.
I think if every day we come in with love for this opportunity, and we have a lot of gratitude for what we get to do and a high work ethic, and we recruit the right people and surround our student athletes with the right people on the staff, then there's no limit to what we can do. But it's just, it's going to require every day to give our best effort, and we'll get what we get.
With Ulmer at the helm, the Jayhawks look to build off of their strong 2024 season. Off the court, Matt Ulmer is a husband and father of 4 who is happy to move his family back to the Midwest. We will now be sending it over to Bianca with an update on men's basketball.
Thanks, Jude. What an exciting showdown it was this past Saturday night for Kansas basketball. It was a packed house at Allen Fieldhouse for this double overtime thriller as the Jayhawks went toe-to-toe with the 7th-ranked Houston Cougars. The game was a roller coaster from start to finish, with 2 key players stepping up in a big way. Freshman standout Flory Badunga had an incredible performance, finishing with a career-high 19 points. Before this game, he was averaging just 6 points per game, but he really found his stride in the second half. After scoring only 2 points in the first half, Badunga exploded for 17 in the second half and overtime, helping Kansas in the game, especially with KJ Adams out with a separated shoulder. On the perimeter, Rylan Griffin was also a huge factor. The Alabama transfer was lights out from beyond the arc, hitting 5 of 6 3-pointers, including 2 3-pointers in the first overtime. One of those threes put Kansas up by 4 points with just 50 seconds remaining. The Jayhawks were able to gain a 6-point lead with 16 seconds left, but unfortunately, a few late mistakes allowed Houston to tie the game and send it into a second overtime. In the end, despite a strong effort from the Jayhawks, they came up short in the second overtime, falling to Houston. The Jayhawks will look to bounce back strong in their next matchup as they will be back in Allen Fieldhouse January 28th, facing off against the UCF Knights. Tip-off is set for 7 p.m. and the game will be streamed on ESPN. Now, I'll send it over to Emmett to fill us in on the impacts of Shaquille Moore.
Thanks, Bianca, and man, what a tough loss for the Jayhawks. But speaking of the Jayhawks, throughout the first half of the season, Bill Self was trying to find that 5th starter as he was constantly changing it. Self went from guys like AJ Storr, Rylan Griffin, and even David Coit, and it left Jayhawk fans confused. That was until January 5th when South put former Mississippi State guard Shaquille Moore into the starting lineup for a road game at UCF. Road games have been a struggle for KU the past couple of years, but Shaquille Moore gave everything that Kansas needed to pick up a win. And it wasn't just a win. It was a blowout as the Jayhawks defeated the Knights by 51. And Moore finished with 6 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds in the blowout. Moore brought the intensity that KU has been lacking in losses like to West Virginia, where KU just straight up looked flat on both sides of the ball. After the UCF game, the Jayhawks would come back to Allen Fieldhouse and have a comeback win against Arizona State, and then go to Cincinnati and pick up an ugly win. After the Cincinnati game, Hunter Dickinson described Moore perfectly by saying he is a junkyard dog. That's exactly what Moore is. He is consistent. He doesn't average the most points, and he doesn't need to. He steps into his role perfectly and gives it his all, which is great to see considering he was dealing with an injury at the beginning of the season, and then when healthy, didn't play very often. He is aggressive in all aspects of the game and thrives on the defensive side. Self even said at the beginning of the season, when Moore returns, he will be the best defender on the floor. Unfortunately, Kansas hosted the Houston Cougars this past weekend and fell short in a double overtime thriller. Moore showed some intensity in that game, but few others can bring as much intensity as a guy like KJ Adams, who's currently out with an injury. Kansas really needed KJ Adams in a game like that. Even though Adams doesn't provide a lot of offense, that game was full of energy, and Adams could have provided a great spark and would have been a great matchup for Juwan Roberts, who thrived against Hunter Dickinson. Adams is a great piece to the team, so it'll be fun to see him back from his injury. These Jayhawks have some dogs, and even though they lost a tough one at home, that game showed they have people who can step it up, so it's only exciting to see what a fully healthy Jayhawks team will look like. Hey, Ben, how's the women's hoops team in Houston?
Thank you, Emmett. The Kansas men's basketball team couldn't secure a win at Allen Fieldhouse against Houston, but the women's team shined on the road, defeating the Houston Cougars with a score of 57-43 at the Fertitta Center in Houston. The Jayhawks continued to dominate the game from the start, led by standout performances from Layla Kasena and Reagan Williams. Both players recorded double-doubles, with Kanessa scoring 11 points and grabbing a career-high 10 rebounds. Williams matched her numbers, finishing with 11 points and 10 rebounds, as well as making her third double-double of the season. Both players also contributed defensively, each snagging 2 steals. Another major highlight came from Samaya Nichols, who reached her career milestone by recording 900 career points during this game. Nichols led all of scorers with 16 points while adding 4 rebounds and 6 assists. Ellie Evans also had a strong, outstanding finish with 13 points and 4 rebounds. Kansas jumped out to an early lead with an 8-4 run in the opening minutes and never looked back. A 9-0 scoring burst late in the first quarter helped the Jayhawks build a commanding 17-7 advantage by the end of the period. By halftime, they extended their lead to 30-17 thanks to clutch 3-pointers from Nichols and Kanessa. The Cougars tried to battle back but could not close the gap, as the Jayhawks balanced strong scoring through defense and were key to holding Houston to just 43 points. With this win, Kansas improves to 13-7 overall and 3-6 in Big 12 play. The Jayhawks return to Allen Fieldhouse this Wednesday to face Texas Tech at 6:30 p.m.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
All right, getting professional now. NFL championship round took place yesterday, and oh boy, that Chiefs-Bills game was absolute cinema. You happen to catch that game, Grant?
You know, Coop, I couldn't have missed that game. What an elite matchup between two juggernauts. After seeing the Bills lose 4 straight playoff games to the Chiefs, you would have thought I'd learned my lesson. But no, I bet on the Bills, and now I'm out $20. So I just can't believe Kincaid dropped that ball, because that was a total game changer.
A total game changer indeed. Now, a game wrecker, on the other hand, comes from Saquon Barkley, who put the Eagles on his back with 3 touchdowns, the first of which coming from a 1-play drive, 60-yard touchdown.
Here's Olivier for more on the NFL championship weekend. Take it for a spin, Olivier.
Thanks, Grant. The Bills and Commanders both came up short against their rivals on Sunday, and now they shift their focus to improving this offseason. The future looks bright as can be in Washington after an amazing turnaround in year 1 of a new regime. Jaden Daniels already looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and there are a lot of other young players on the roster to be excited about. Although Washington had a great season, Philly made it clear that the Commanders still need to improve to win the NFC. The Eagles overwhelmed Washington in the trenches, rushing for 7 touchdowns and leaving hardly any room on the ground for the Commanders. The Commanders' secondary also couldn't keep up with Philly's receivers, who consistently worked open and beat man coverage. With a personnel advantage at arguably every position except for quarterback, Philadelphia made Washington look like the team that picked number 2 in the draft last year. The Commanders need to focus on adding as much talent as possible to the roster while Jaden Daniels is on a rookie contract. Over the Cap projects Washington to have over $87 million in cap space this offseason. That's plenty of money to re-sign veteran free agents Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, and to go after a big-name free agent or two. They could add T. Higgins to take their passing game to another level, sign DJ Reed to tighten up the back end on defense, or sign Trey Smith away from the Chiefs to improve up front. It'll be really interesting to see which direction GM Adam Peters goes. Over in the AFC, the future looks a lot grimmer for the Bills. It happened again. For the 4th time in 5 years, the Chiefs broke Buffalo's heart. Since 2018, the Bills have won 84 games, which is second in the league to Kansas City, and the most ever for an NFL team over a 7-season period to not make a Super Bowl. Buffalo is currently projected to be over the cap for next season already, so they'll likely need to move on from Von Miller's contract and push some money into the future this offseason. That'll make it hard to bring back free agents Rasul Douglas and Amari Cooper. With an expensive roster, the Bills will need to hit on their draft picks. They have an extra 2nd and 4th round pick to work with, but they traded away their 3rd for Cooper. It's not all doom and gloom in Buffalo. They have the likely MVP in Josh Allen, a good coaching staff, a stable front office, and a pretty talented roster that's getting younger. But Kansas City has become a hurdle this team cannot get over. Buffalo's consistently been in spots to win these games, but they haven't been able to do it. No roster addition or coaching adjustment has been able to make the Bills one play better than the Chiefs when they really need to be. It feels inevitable that the Bills will find themselves again in the 4th quarter of a close playoff game with the Chiefs. But it's hard to come up with a good reason why the result is going to be any different next time. Next, we'll head over to Grant to talk about the NBA's dip in television ratings.
Thanks, Olivier. What an exciting week in the NFL. There's no feeling like sitting on the edge of your seat watching some championship football. It seems like no matter the matchup, millions of people will tune into the game. But that's not the same story for the NBA. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while, but we are back and ready for a new semester of NBA Deep Dives. Let's take a look at the viewership issue in the NBA. When you think of the 2 biggest sports in America, your mind probably goes to football and basketball. Sorry, baseball fans. The NFL has had no issue bringing in millions of viewers each week for the span of the season. The NBA, on the other hand, struggles. The average NFL game brings in around 17.5 million viewers. The NBA only manages 1.5 million. Now, why is that? Is it because of the 82-game seasons? Is it because of the lack of defense, or possibly the evolution of the 3-ball? I would argue that it is a combination of all 3. Unlike the NFL, the NBA season consists of 82 games plus playoffs. That's a lot of games for the average fan to tune into. It's easy to watch an NFL game when they play once a week, but to tune into a game multiple times a week at different times and different dates is a different story. It's hard to ask viewers to tune in when people are balancing their work, family, and school while also trying to watch an NBA game. An interesting thing to look at is the holiday games. The NBA seems to have claimed Christmas Day as their day, but is that true? The NFL this season decided to have the Ravens and Texans as well as the Chiefs and Steelers play on Christmas Day. The viewership, a staggering 60 million split between the 2 games. The NBA, on the other hand, had a handful of games, 5 games to be exact, and they only brought in an average of 5.5 million per game. Statistically, the NFL now owns Christmas Day, which might upset the diehard NBA fans. Now, another issue is the lack of defense. It seems like a majority of NBA players were drafted for their offensive abilities and not their defense. It stands out when a player is a defensive star and not so much for an offensive star. You see it all the time. A fast break and a player just lets them score. You see constantly lazy defense, and fans would love to see a defensive game. After all, these are the best games to watch. A chippy, hard-fought game. Games with constant offense can be fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but at times it seems like defense is just completely forgotten about. The last issue that will be brought up today is the evolution of the 3-ball. We have seen more 3-pointers taken now than we have ever seen before. Back 15 years ago, you would see point guards and shooting guards shooting a majority of the threes. But in today's NBA, we see centers and big men shooting behind the arc. Two of the biggest names at center in recent years are Shaquille O'Neal and Victor Wembanyama. The difference between these two? Shaq shot 22 shots behind the arc in his career, while Wembanyama has made 250 threes in 2 years. The evolution of players shooting more threes goes hand in hand with the lack of defense. It makes games almost unwatchable when teams are just chucking up threes possession after possession. And to make it worse, it happens for an 82-game season. Now, all of these reasons go together to show why the NBA is losing views. Now, as for what they could do about it, there are multiple different ways for the league to fix it. But we are just about out of time this week. Tune in to Run It Back next week to hear all about how we can fix it. Now, another segment, another issue, another league. Trevor, take it away.
Thanks, Grant. I'm so excited to be back talking about baseball. However, not as excited as Dodgers fans after the signing of Roki Asaki for $6.1 million. With that signing, many people are wondering how the Dodgers keep finding cap space to sign these high-profile players. The MLB does not have a salary cap, but rather a luxury tax to incentivize teams to stay under a certain amount of money every season. This is supposed to make it so that smaller market teams, such as the Colorado Rockies, can compete with bigger market teams, such as the Dodgers. However, the Dodgers found a loophole with superstar Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani signed a contract in the 2023 offseason that was worth a whopping $700 million over a 10-year period. However, the Dodgers made a smart move that gave them the ability to defer payment of the contract until 2034, when they have to pay him $68 million until 2043. This gives the Dodgers the ability to sign other high-profile players to complement Ohtani and give the Dodgers the best opportunity at winning a championship. Something to note is that other teams are fully able to do the exact same thing and defer contracts. However, the hard part about deferring a contract is finding a player that's willing to give up a large amount of money upfront for the good of the team. For comparison, in 2019, the Philadelphia Phillies signed Bryce Harper to a 13-year, $330 million contract. However, this contract included no deferred money. For the Phillies, this has proved to be a problem for them, as they do not have the capital to go out and get players that are worth the large amounts of money that they need. After the witty move by the Dodgers in 2023, don't be surprised if more contracts in the future reflect Shohei's. Coming off a World Series victory in 2024, the Dodgers hope to continue to take advantage of Shohei's contract as they look to build another World Series roster for the 2025 season. With the offseason now in full swing, expect the Dodgers to continue to spend large amounts of money to build a roster that's worthy of another ring. With rosters starting to change, make sure to keep your eyes glued to the TV as the MLB starts to pick back up and teams start reporting the spring training to begin the chase for the 2025 World Series. We will be right back after this short break.
National champions deserve a clean campus. Don't wait for other Jayhawks to pick up your mess. Keep the University of Kansas clean.
You know, this year we are trying something new. And no, I'm not talking about new anchors. I'm talking about a new segment.
Yeah, Grant, this is going to be exciting, all right? We have a new addition. It's AP Polls Top 10 starring Jack Kenna. Jack will be doing a rundown of college hoops top 10. And first, we are going to go to Jacob Johnson, who will give us a KU tennis update. Take it away, Jacob.
Thank you, guys. Now, normally I'm talking about football, but today we are taking a deep dive into our Jayhawk tennis team and their success over the past weekend. KU swept the Kansas City Roos and the Creighton Blue Jays in their home opener on Friday and proved to a 2-0 start for the first time since the 2019-20 season. Now, in singles against the Roos, Kansas dominated going 7-0. Malivi took down our competition by a twin score of 6-2. The only single match that went to a third set was Van Vern on court 2 as she battled to a total 10-7 victory. Now, Kubo, an all Big 12 freshman team pick last year, opened up her sophomore season with a 6-3 win. Now, their next match is against Creighton, which, fun fact, is KU's first match against the Blue Jays since the year of 2000. On court 2, Kubo and Edema fell 6-1, and after a 2-point deficit, Benedizan and Putalini rallied for 6 straight to even out the battle for doubles points. And then on court 1, Malivi and Van Vern went back and forth trading sets with Creighton up until 5-5 to force a tiebreaker. And then the duo went on to score a 7-5 victory. In singles, Kubo got the second point of the evening, winning 6-2, and then Kansas went on to sweep singles 4-0. Now yesterday we matched up against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Kansas won its first doubles match of the day with Van Veren and Molivi winning 6-3 on court 1. Then on court 3, Aristine Bakova and Putalini won 6-4 for the Jayhawks, and then on court 2, the match went unfinished. And as for singles, KU dropped the first duel but finished the match by winning the next 3. The Jayhawks ultimately prevailed 4-1 against the Iowa, and as they have now opened the season 3-0, which is their best start since the 2015 and 16 season. Now, tossing it to Jack so we can hear what our crew thinks should be the top 10 in college basketball, and no, Kansas is not one of them.
Thanks, Jacob. It was a wild week for college basketball, and I am here to break it down to you in a new segment we like to call Hoop Hierarchy. In this segment, we will break down the RunitBack crew's top 10, discussing the risers and the fallers, and showing you the games that you need to be on the lookout for this week. Let's start at number 1. The Auburn Tigers remain number 1 after defeating Tennessee at home. Led by Janiyah Broome, 16 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 blocks. Auburn looks to be the most dominant team in the country. Number 2, the Duke Blue Devils. Duke went 1-0 this week, picking up a road win at Wake Forest. Led by star freshman and future number 1 overall pick Cooper Flagg, the Devils are rolling. Take a look at those stats throughout conference play. 23 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. Absolutely incredible. 3 and 4, there's not much to talk about. Iowa State and Alabama have shown that they are consistently top 5 teams in the country, both going 2-0 this week. Houston comes in at number 5 after beating the Kansas Jayhawks in a double overtime thriller at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday. Let's move over here and talk about the rest of the crew. Florida coming in at number 6. They go 2-0 this week. The best team in the Big Ten comes in at number 7. Michigan State is on an absolute roll, winning their last 12 games. The Marquette Golden Eagles come in at number 8. Tennessee is at 9 after falling on the road against number 1 Auburn. We're not going to penalize the Vols too much. And rounding out the top 10 is Purdue, a dominant performance against Michigan after falling at home to Ohio State. Now, let's take a look at some of the best matchups this week in college basketball. As you'll see, the Vols have 2 top 12 matchups. They host Kentucky, and then they host number 5, Florida. All of these numbers are according to the AP poll, not ours. Alabama will travel to Mississippi State to take on the Bulldogs, but they're not the only team from Alabama traveling to Mississippi, as Auburn will take on Ole Miss and Chris Beard. The last game to watch is one of the best rivalries in all of college sports, when the 2 blue blood programs, North Carolina and Duke, meet up in Durham to take on each other. It's going to be an insane atmosphere and a crazy college basketball game. That is all I have for this week of college basketball. I'll throw it back to the desk. Grant and Cooper, take care.
Wow, what a fantastic start to the semester. I don't know about you, Coop, but I am jazzed for the weeks to come.
Oh, baby. This is going to be fun. Sadly, no game show this semester. But what can I say? You know, I'm in the big leagues now. You know?
No kidding, 0 to 100 within a few weeks. Now, looking at this week in advance, KU men's hoops looks to take on UCF here in Allen Fieldhouse on Tuesday, followed up by KU women's basketball on Wednesday.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled as we have even more surprises in store, including some new faces. And hey, I haven't heard that there's some maybe new intro. Once again, I'm Cooper Hannon.
And I'm Grant Shearer.
Hey, how about let's run it back next week?